Thank you for waiting. We now would like to start a briefing session on the NYK Group ESG Story hosted by NYK Line. First, let me introduce today's speakers, the President of NYK, Hitoshi Nagasawa, Executive Officer Yuko Tsutsui, Executive Officer Takuji Banno. In this session, we can call upon the President Nagasawa to make his opening remarks first, followed by Yuko Tsutsui and Takuji Banno to present on the NYK Group ESG Story 2022. After that, we will take questions and we will finish at around 4:30 p.m. Today's presentation materials are already posted on our webpage for your reference. Please send us your questions via chat box. Please be reminded that on-demand video stream of today's session will be available later. President Nagasawa, please start your opening remarks. I am Hitoshi Nagasawa, the President of NYK Line. Thank you for your participation to the NYK Group's ESG Story 2022 presentation today. I would like to use this opportunity to thank your tremendous support to our group's activities. Our group announced the first NYK Group ESG Story in February of last year. During today's presentation, we would like to explain what activities we've done over a year. In addition, the next fiscal year is the last year of the current medium-term management plan that was announced in 2018. Over the next fiscal year, we intend to formulate a new medium-term management plan for the years starting in fiscal 2023. Since we want this plan relevant to our long-term vision, we established a task force in fiscal 2021 comprised of 7 young executive officers of the ESG Management Committee, and I asked the task force to discuss a vision by 2050. The contents of such vision will also be presented today. Executive Officer Yuko Tsutsui, please. Let me present on the NYK Group's ESG Story 2022. As the current medium-term management plan Staying Ahead 2022 showing our policy direction of integrating ESG into our management strategy. We believe that placing ESG in the center of our management strategy is the foundation of our growth strategy. ESG management means that a company operates based on 2 yardsticks, one being economic perspectives that aim to increase corporate value, while another being ESG perspectives aiming for realizing sustainable society and environment. As a result, the company becomes a sustainable solution provider that creates new value, thus will be chosen by customers and society, and thus can increase our corporate value. Since the announcement of the NYK Group ESG Story last year, we designated FY 2021 the first year for ESG management and started the group-wide serious efforts. Today, I'd like to present on the results for a year. In addition, in parallel with taking concrete actions on promoting ESG management, we started to discuss a growth strategy based on backcasting from the desired state of the future, employing a super long-term perspective. We will continue such discussion in the second year to reflect on the new medium-term management plan. As this slide shows, Sustainable Growth Task Force is developing the growth strategy for medium-term plan. As President Nagasawa explained, the task force members are 7 executive officers of each business lines. The 7 members are also the members of ESG Management Committee, so that the discussion held at the ESG Management Committee is directly reflected to the growth strategy. Let me now begin the Chapter 1. I will present on key updates on the initiatives presented last year and later we will present Chapter 2 to give some outcomes delivered by preparation work for the medium-term management plan to be announced next year. In order to continue to be a company contributing to and needed by the society, the NYK Group aims to be a sustainable solution provider that creates a virtuous cycle in which each employee has a long-term perspective, has ESG perspective, makes differentiation of existing business, expands into new business, and contributes to solving social issues. In order to encourage employees to use ESG yardstick, ESG Navigator was established at all 46 departments and divisions. ESG Navigators are to connect discussions of all directions, cascading down the policy and directions from the senior management and ESG Management Committee, escalating bottom up the understanding in the divisions. A total of slightly less than 200 are joining, including 70 employees through the job system and other willing supporters. The sessions, called Navigators Dialogue, have been held to share learnings on ESG and activities in the divisions. While the ESG Management Promotion Group is actively sharing ESG-related information over the dialogue, ESG Navigators are becoming a hub of expertise with regards to what is the ESG yardstick for our own division and how we can apply. ESG Navigators Dialogue is now functioning to share information across the group. We conduct awareness surveys to assess the penetration of ESG management among employees, comparing the first year results assessed in April of last year and the results of about 10 months later, as of January 2022, 51% more employees were aware of ESG in daily work, and 66% more employees were able to use ESG yardstick. In the free description column, many comments were submitted, such as proposals, motivation, impressions, and ideas for promoting activities, indicating that the employees' interest is very high. In order to further instill and settle the ESG yardstick, it is necessary to continue efforts such as firmly linking ESG targets with their job description and business targets. In addition, we will continue to work so that the whole group will understand and use ESG yardstick well. Each responsible head office divisions encourage group companies, resulting in preparing their own ESG stories. Youth and Logistics plans to publish their ESG stories in April. In summary, during this fiscal year, we have focused on promoting open discussions at all directions, such as top-down, bottom-up, cross-sectional, at the head office. In the next fiscal year, we will expand to group companies in and outside of Japan. In cooperation with the head office departments, regional and country representatives, we will further evolve the system for sharing learnings and results within the group. In the first year of ESG management, the initial part of employee awareness reform delivered certain results, and we will proceed with promotion activities mainly around these 4 points going forward. Some ongoing projects on strengthening people and organizations will be explained later. As subcommittee activities under the ESG Management Committee, we will promote human rights initiatives by formulating policy and undertaking human rights due diligence in fiscal year 2022. In order to strengthen the KPI management structures of ESG management, in this year, ESG Management Committee members and ESG Navigators took the lead in setting strategies and KPIs based on the ESG yardstick. KPIs will be monitored by the ESG Management Committee in the following years. The Compensation Advisory Committee, which outside directors participate, will examine how to incorporate the ESG elements in the executive compensation and reflect them in the system in the future. Let me now discuss how to enhance people and organization so that as a sustainable solution provider, we make the most of the power of our 35,000 NYK Group employees worldwide to create new value and contribute to society. In order to create an environment where NYK Group employees can play an active role, we will conduct an engagement survey globally from the next fiscal year. It has become clear that companies with higher employee engagement can maintain the culture required to realize their strategies, such as innovative culture, improved corporate performance. Our ambition is to be a company that provides an environment that gives employees the authority and resources to demonstrate their abilities, and a collaborative culture filled with the passion and vitality of employees, who understands the direction and goals of the company and are willing to do their best to make the organization successful. In addition, this fiscal year, we launched a new work style project in the company, which explores the form of an organization where executives and employees can work together and demonstrate their abilities. Diversity and inclusion is the foundation of our organization. We believe that we need an environment where employees with diverse attributes and values can maximize their abilities through diverse work styles to respond to risks, to innovate, and to respond to diversifying stakeholders and customer needs amid major changes in the globalized external environment. As components of such a good and strong company, we established subcommittees based on 3 pillars: work satisfaction or engagement, work style or remote work, and employee-friendly conditions or smart work. The topics of each subcommittee will be communicated to employees through internal portals, town hall meetings, and live events, and will be linked to effective measures that emphasize affinity with the job on the ground. In the next fiscal year, through the job system, we will draw up the specifics to strengthen people and organizations. Next, with regards to the value we create through the efforts of diverse human resources with ESG yardsticks. Let me present on key examples based on 4 key themes set in the original NYK Group ESG story. First of all, I would like to introduce 2 examples related to safe ship operation. Safety is the center of ESG management, and safety is a social responsibility that any logistics company group should give the top priority. The group is truly committed to ensuring safe ship operation. Our own safety requirements, such as NAV 9000, are fully implemented through dialogue with partners. In addition, a system for developing excellent human resources is essential for improving the safety of people and ships. In the future, we would like to maintain a higher level of safe ship operation by incorporating advanced support functions through the fusion of people and digital technology. For such purposes, we are carrying out initiatives for social implementation of autonomous ships. NYK started R&D on AI-based ship operation in 2018, and in 2019, we succeeded in the world's first demonstration test of remotely operated manned autonomous ships. In addition, the fully autonomous ship framework developed by NYK Group was the first in Japan to obtain certification from the Nippon Kaiji Kyokai, Class NK, and the French Classification Association, Bureau Veritas. Using this framework under the Nippon Foundation's joint program on technology development for demonstration experiments of unmanned ship operation, we successfully conducted a demonstration test for an unmanned ships at about 790 kilometers between Port of Tokyo and the port of Tsumatsuzaka at the end of February. This initiative is expected to resolve the social issues, such as labor shortages and marine accidents, faced by the coastal shipping industry and aims to realize the practical application by 2025. This slide shows DX for safe operation and expansion of the system. Dialog Drive can select the best service provider for sending and receiving large amounts of data between the ship and the land. SIM3 can measure data every minute, detect and verify abnormalities of onboard equipment in real time. Shinrai, that performs comprehensive risk assessment of operating ships, and Nibiki, which centrally manages various systems for safe operation and operational efficiency. Please refer to Appendix for more information. In September 2021, the group declared net zero emission by 2050 in its ocean-going shipping business. Making active investment to achieve this, we plan to build a total of 45 environmentally conscious ships at this time. It is also important to train seafarers of LNG fueled ships, and this can only be done by shipping companies that own LNG fueled ships. We can conduct the prior training of crews in compliance with the IGF code. As part of Green Innovation Fund project and being subsidized by NATO, we studied the development of ships equipped with ammonia fuel-based domestic engines. We are also planning to construct LPG-fueled ships and methanol-fueled ships, and we are actively promoting fuel conversion with the aim of leading the shipping industry in achieving net zero emissions. With regard to challenging on the energy field as new business, in anticipation with the expansion of the offshore wind power market in Japan, NYK is making the most of the group's knowledge through a strategy of partnering with overseas players and is steadily developing products such as transporting materials from geological surveys, operation of equipment installation ships, transportation of human resources responsible for operation and maintenance. In February of this year, we concluded an agreement with Akita Prefecture to comprehensively collaborate on regional revitalization, including promoting renewable energy projects such as offshore wind power generation and developing human resources related to the project. Akita branch will be opened on April 1st. With regards to zero-emission ships, we plan to launch ammonia-fueled tugboats in 2024 and ammonia-fueled ocean-going ships in 2026, leading implementation including legal compliance and the formulation of safety guidelines. Furthermore, by investing in Tsubame BHB, which enables high-efficiency ammonia synthesis in low-temperature and low-pressure environments with innovative technology, we will work to create green business and contribute to decarbonization of the industries as a whole. Hydrogen, which can be carbon-free, clean energy in various industries, including power generation and mobility, is seen as the last resort for building a carbonized society. However, large-scale, long-distance transportation and long-term storage, which is required to connect supply and demand areas globally and stably, have become technical issues in realizing a hydrogen-based society. As a solution, we are working on a demonstration project for commercialization of hydrogen using methyl cyclohexane products produced from toluene and hydrogen. As an innovative approach to realizing a carbon-neutral society, we started transportation business of the liquefied carbon dioxide. Together with NYK Group, one of the world's leading shuttle tanker operators, which our company is jointly operating Knutsen NYK offshore tankers, we established Knutsen NYK Carbon Carriers, a joint venture company that develops and markets new business related to the marine transportation and storage of liquefied carbon dioxide. The joint company offers advanced transportation technologies, including loading and unloading liquefied carbon dioxide onshore and offshore. As a founding member of the Maersk McKinley Møller Center for Zero Carbon Shipping in Denmark that promotes decarbonization by alternative fuel conversion in the maritime industry, we have dispatched engineers to promote feasibility study related to decarbonization. We were the only Japanese shipping company participating in COP26 in Glasgow last November. We sponsored and exhibited at events hosted by the International Chamber of Shipping and participated in various events to actively communicate the group's specific efforts to reduce GHG emissions. We also endorsed the joint initiative Green Corridors to realize Green Shipping Corridor, which is included in the Clyde Bank Declaration. Margo Pay was established in Manila, the Philippines in 2019 with the aim of building a platform that will support seafarers and improve their lives by solving financial challenges faced by seafarers and others supporting in the shipping industry. We have steadily increased the use of electronic money to pay salaries and started housing and car loan and insurance brokerage service. It is also expected to expand their opportunities by reducing the burden on seafarers on financing and promote the growth of local communities. In fiscal 2021, we redeveloped the group's social contribution framework and established a new framework called NYK Group Sustainability Initiative. With a budget of 1 billion yen per year, we are also considering solution businesses that utilize the resources of the group in order to solve social and environmental issues. Even in the event of the COVID-19 pandemic, various events and information release are carried out proactively. This program is called Sasu Ini, and the number of employees who participated in the activities is steadily increasing. I will introduce unique challenge efforts that we made in response to various issues. Scrapping yards is highly relevant to the environmental conservation and working conditions. Thus, in May 2021, we participated in the Ship Recycling Transparency Initiative as the first Japanese shipping company. This is an information disclosure platform led by the Sustainable Shipping Initiative. In order to fulfill our social responsibilities to ensure that the group-owned and chartered ships are safely scrapped and recycled in environmentally conscious ways, we have established specialist monitoring group. They attend at the scrapping yards and established a monitoring process to identify daily issues. With regard to ocean plastic waste, we learned of a survey result showing more than 360,000 tons of plastic waste are disposed of in rivers and flowing into the ocean in the Philippines. Against such major environmental problem, we will support the River Restoration Project undertaken by San Miguel Corporation, a major conglomerate in the Philippines, and we pledged a total of $1.5 million over a long term. In the Forest Project, which will be fully engaged in the future, we will position our activities as a challenge that leads to the conservation of various public interest functions and biodiversity of forests. In addition to researching and reporting on organisms and plants living in that area, we would like to play a role in living together with local communities, such as cooperation with local governments and establishing relations with local companies. I have explained the main results of ESG management in the first year. We have described more in the appendix, so please kindly take a look at your pleasure. We will continue to promote the ESG management in FY 2022 with the same level of passion as in the first year. Next, Executive Officer Takuji Banno will explain on Chapter 2 of the Sustainable Growth Strategy.
I will now explain Chapter 2. Since last year, we have been working diligently to promote and spread ESG management within the company, and in parallel, the 7 executive officers have been working as the Sustainable Growth Task Force. The task force has been working on setting the year 2050 as the milestone, and what our company should be at this point, how we want to change, and what we want to do to change. The purpose of the task force is to discuss what we should do now and what we should do in the future, after discussing the measures to be taken over the next 30 years. The activity will continue through FY 2022, so it is actually a 2-year activity, and we are currently at the halfway point, so the discussion is not yet at a convergence. The discussion is still continuing. So, what I can explain this time is not everything. As I mentioned earlier, we made a net zero declaration in September of last year, so I would like to introduce the first year of our activities with a special focus on the environmental aspects of CO2 and GHG emissions. I hope to be able to explain the details or the overall picture in more detail during the presentation of the medium-term plan next year. The task force began its activities in April of last year, and the first thing we did was to discuss how the external environment would change in the year 2050, which is a long time in the future and a world that we can only imagine, and we tried to reconcile our assumptions. We have various internal resources, and we all have our own visions of the future 30 years from now, but we have dared to use outside consultants to discuss how the external environment will actually change in 2050 by comparing their visions of the future with our own. We then discussed how our business environment would be affected by the changes in the external environment, and as you can see here, there will be various changes such as decarbonization, climate change risk, circular economy, etc. We imagined the year 2050. We have spent 3 months working on this to figure out how our business, especially our risks and opportunities, will change over the next 30 years in light of changes in the external environment, although we needed to partially rely on our imagination. We defined what we want to be and discussed strategic pathways toward the goal. This slide may not be very clear to you, so let me give you an example of one of the main pillars of our business that you may be familiar with. The auto logistics business is the main pillar of our business, and lately there are reports suggesting major changes in the auto industry. Shift to EV, case, local production for local consumption, direct sales, and e-commerce. Along with these trends, the demand for automobile sales and naturally the demand for those of us in the transportation business will also change dramatically. In such a situation, we are engaged in various businesses, including transportation business, our auto logistics business, and our terminal business. We had intense discussions about how these businesses would be affected, how they would change, and what actions we should take at that point in time. We even discussed what kind of income expense model could be developed. We have conducted a series of verifications in various fields, and I think that this has uncovered to some extent our approach to medium-term management plan. We have compiled this in the form of a conceptual diagram. This is the slide I am showing you. We would like to launch this concept A, B, C, D, E, X at an early stage so that it will permeate throughout the company. AX is ambidexterity in management. BX is business transformation. We position these two as our core strategies. DX and EX are the tools to support the core strategies. We have already incorporated digital and green in our current medium-term management plan, and we will further strengthen them. The most important foundation to support DX and EX is CX. This includes organization and human resource transformation, which will be promoted in the future. This is what this diagram intends to communicate. Each strategy itself is not particularly new and is often referred to in the world in general. But we have been deepening the discussion further over the past year and have incorporated them into the new medium-term management plan. First of all, I would like to explain a little about AX and BX. BX, the business transformation, has two pillars: further strengthening of existing core businesses and exploration of new businesses. The first is to deepen our existing business, in which we continue to provide services that clients need in various ways. We will continue to provide new services in a way that is even closer to our clients as the business environment undergoes further drastic changes. As a result, we aim to become a corporate entity that is chosen by our clients. In terms of environmental measures, as was explained earlier, we are already committed to environmental investment for 45 ships. We will continue to proactively accelerate this kind of investments. By using the profits from our existing businesses, which we will continue to develop in a manner that is close to our clients, we will continue to explore and develop new businesses over the next 30 years. In the white space on the right side of this slide, we have listed some areas of new business opportunities in small text. These are just examples of the many ideas that have emerged from the discussions over the past year. We are not saying that we will actually do all of them, but just an illustration of various ideas in the course of discussing on what we would like to be in 2050. We will continue to refine these ideas over the next year during the preparation work for the medium-term management plan. We will naturally promote a large part of green projects, but also in other areas, we are exploring new businesses and new fields by utilizing our broad knowledge and experience. Therefore, we call this ambidextrous management, or AX, which means that we will run with two wheels, existing businesses and new businesses. I'm not going to go into DX and CX today because some of the discussions are not yet complete, but during the discussions over the past year, of course, the income and expenditure model was discussed. We have been discussing this to some extent, so I would like to now explain the funding needs in particular as part of the financial model. We have made various assumptions and accumulated income and expenditures for the period of 30 years, and as a result, we are now projecting total investments of 4.8 trillion yen by 2050. The breakdown of 4.8 trillion yen is as follows: 3.6 trillion yen for existing businesses and 1.2 trillion yen for investments in new growth businesses, as I mentioned earlier. As a further breakdown of the 3.6 trillion yen for existing businesses, we are projecting 2.1 trillion yen for environmental investments, such as zero-emission ships, which I will explain shortly. The investment will be used to decarbonize ships, which will amount to 2.1 trillion yen. In terms of other investments for renewing existing businesses, the 1.5 trillion yen includes investments in LNG-fueled ships, which are currently quite large. The future investments in LNG-fueled ships are included in the 1.5 trillion yen. Just to note that this is only the result of our simulation, but these are the figures we are assuming. The figures on the previous slide are for the period up to 2050, and this slide in the middle of the slide shows the details until 2030. The simulation result of the investments until 2030 is 1.7 trillion yen. The decarbonization of ships, which I mentioned earlier, will amount to 2.1 trillion yen by 2050, and we are planning to spend 550 billion yen by 2030. As you can see, the investments for renewing existing business during the period up to 2030 is 720 billion yen, which is a large figure. This is because the investment in LNG-fueled ships that I mentioned earlier is included here. I would like to briefly explain our roadmap toward our goal of achieving net zero emissions by 2050, which is the premise for our investments. First of all, we have begun to invest in the environment, but we will also make efforts to improve the operating efficiency of our fleet of oil-fueled ships by further utilizing DX. As a result, we will reduce CO2 emissions, and we will first of all provide the kind of service that will reduce environmental impact that our clients require. We intend to do this steadily. The next step is ships powered by zero-emission fuels. Since the development of zero-emission ships that do not emit any GHGs has not progressed in the world, we have not yet reached this technological goal. As a bridge solution, we are advancing the introduction of LNG-fueled ships, in which we have begun to invest, and we are intending to further accelerate. This is the major part of the 550 billion yen decarbonization investment by 2030 that I mentioned earlier. Our simulation is based on the assumption that zero-emission ships will be technically feasible by around 2030. Therefore, after that, we will switch to zero-emission ships. I will explain the details on the next slide. Here, I will explain our fuel conversion path. However, we have not yet determined what the new fuel will be. We are still exploring various possibilities. Through collaboration with our partners, we intend to lead the future implementation of new fuels in society by exploring the best way to decarbonize the fuel. But this time, our assumption in our simulation is to switch to ammonia-fueled ships. Specifically, as written here, we do not yet know, but we assume that zero-emission ammonia-fueled ships will be commercially available by 2028, that the shipyards will have production system in place by around 2030, and that mass production capabilities will be established by 2035. Our new shipbuilding orders will be placed in accordance with that, and we will gradually convert to ammonia-fueled ships. This simulation is based on the assumption that we will start the change with car carriers. As you can see, we do not expect to switch to zero-emission ships entirely until 2050. Depending on the size and shape of the ship, it may not be possible to run on ammonia fuels, so we will have to continue to use ships that are designed to burn fuel oil. However, this simulation assumes that by 2040, biofuels or synthetic fuels which do not emit CO2 when burned will be widely available as marine fuels, and that these fuels will be purchased and used in existing heavy oil-powered ships. The plan is to achieve zero emissions through the combination of these measures. The figures related to zero-emission fuels to be burned is not included in the 2.1 trillion yen for decarbonization of ships that I have just explained. We have, of course, conducted simulations of the GHG emissions reduction that would be achieved through the fuel conversion path. In 2018, in accordance with IMO guidelines, we announced our external GHG emission reduction target of 30% by 2030, with 2015 as the base year. The total amount of emission shown on the graph is not in terms of carbon intensity, but in terms of total volume of emissions. The standard of the target we announced externally does not completely match with this graph, but I am hoping the graph helps you get the overall picture. In the latter half of the graph after 2040, the area shown in light green shows what I mentioned earlier, achieving the final goal of net zero through the use of zero-emission fuels such as biofuels. If we don't use biofuels, the total emission would be reduced by 87% compared to 2015 level, including this green area in the simulation. The remaining 13% will have to be achieved by burning zero-emission fuels in some form. I am going to repeat what I said earlier about investment in decarbonization and investment in ships in promoting emission reductions. This is a bit simplified, but showing the breakdown of the types of ships that we will invest in concrete terms. A total of 2.1 trillion yen for car carriers, dry bulkers, and energy carriers. The figures are not shown in detail, but the figures until 2030 are relatively large for energy carriers and dry bulkers. But after 2030, more and more car carriers that burn ammonia are scheduled to be built. After 2030, this number will accumulate. As a result, the overall investment in car carriers is going to be extremely large. I have talked mainly about the amount of investment and emissions, but the task force has been discussing a variety of issues, including environmental measures towards the year 2050, with various ideas in mind. Although this part of the presentation is somewhat qualitative, I would like to explain our company's vision for the future, which is shown on the last slide. We intend to proceed with 3 pillars. The first is to provide value to our clients. As I explained earlier, we will make even greater use of DX to improve operational efficiency. We are committed to providing transportation and services that are as environmentally friendly as possible. We do not simply mean to reduce the speed of our ships, but to optimize the overall operation schedule, including cargo handling at ports, in line with client demand, which we intend to further enhance in the future. We believe that our clients will demand the kind of services with less emissions in the future, and we will strive to become the corporate entity that is, the preferred logistics provider by the clients. By doing so, we will continue to provide value to our clients. Second, in terms of contribution to society, we have been engaged in the transportation of fossil fuels for quite some time now, and it is no exaggeration to say that this is the backbone of our company. As the energy mix changes and we move toward circular society in the future, we naturally expect changes in the transportation of resources as well. In the task force discussion, we believe that this may lead to a reduction in the volume of transportation of some of the resources. We will continue to support our clients' business even during such times, as long as there is a demand for transportation. Internally, we say that we will bring up the rear. We do intend to fulfill our responsibilities. On the other hand, renewable energy is expected to provide more business opportunities in the future, and we will actively enter into the domain and make new investments. As was explained earlier, in the area of offshore wind power, the Akita branch is going to be opened, and business development and expansion have already begun in various ways. In other areas, in addition to fuels for ships, there are various opinions on zero-emission fuels, whether to choose ammonia or hydrogen. We will actively contribute to the construction of the supply chain. Of course, we will continue to work on marine transportation, but we will also continue to contribute to the realization of a decarbonized society, a society where sustainable growth is possible, including the decarbonization of ships. This is the second pillar. The third and final point is that even so, we must ensure that we will be able to generate profit necessary to meet the anticipated demand for massive investment, and that we will also achieve sustainable growth. We will continue to move forward based on these three pillars. This concludes my explanation of Chapter 2, and I would now like to summarize today's presentation. As explained in Chapter 1, we have been steadily and vigorously promoting the penetration of ESG management, and we intend to continue this aggressively in FY 2022 and beyond. On the other hand, we have the work of deciding on the measures that will take us to the ideal state in 2050. We will continue to discuss this in the preparatory committee for the medium-term management plan over the next year. We intend to further integrate these two streams of discussions in order to draw a solid growth strategy and accelerate its implementation. We expect to be able to announce the new medium-term management plan in 2023 in 1 year. In summary, NYK Group will further promote ESG management with the aim of becoming a corporate entity preferred by clients and in which all group employees can work with vigor and enthusiasm. As a result, as a company, we aim to achieve sustainable growth and enhance the corporate value of our group by creating value for the society. That is all for the explanation.
We now would like to start a question and answer session. This is the first question. You explained that NYK is leading the development of LNG and ammonia-fueled ships. Does this choice affect the ship investment of ONE, an equity method affiliate? This is the first question. Ammonia-fueled ship is underlying assumption for the ESG story. However, I have heard that in Europe, ammonia is not receiving good reputations and they intend to promote the development of hydrogen. What are your thoughts on the potential of hydrogen-fueled ships at this point? This is the second question. I'd like to answer on these two questions. As Takuji Bano explained earlier, as an overall picture of environmental investment, we mentioned the figure of just over 1.7 trillion yen by 2030, including zero emissions, renewable of existing businesses, and new builds. This does not include investment by ONE. ONE announced yesterday that by 2030, they will make an investment of $20 billion, or 2.4 trillion yen, including environmentally conscious ships. With our equity of 38%, that amount can be considered an investment in our container ship sector. Together, about 2.5 trillion yen will be used for environmental measures. When asked whether the desirable container ship is LNG or other technologies developed in the future, for example, ammonia, of course, ONE is our group company, and technical information is exchanged naturally. ONE proceeds according to our direction. LNG as a bridging solution first, and then aim for zero emissions using ammonia, which is expected to be developed in the future. I think that such a direction is roughly in line with ONE. Overall, I believe that ONE's $20 billion investment by year 2030 is well invested in such fuel-converting ships. As for question 2, ammonia or hydrogen are both future fuels for zero emissions, but there are advantages and disadvantages. For example, ammonia is toxic. Hydrogen's heat capacity is small, thus overwhelmingly large capacity tanks have to be installed. In the previous explanation, we are also studying hydrogen while using ammonia as the main scenario. At some point in the 2030s, we will be able to understand the next zero emission fuel. So we are currently conducting the necessary research and development for that purpose. Let's move on to the next question. How many LNG-fueled ships will be invested by 2030? This is the number of ships that have been ordered. There are 35 LNG-fueled ships. If including ammonia, LPG, or methanol-fueled ships, a total of 45 ships. Takuji Bano will explain the assumptions used for simulation. As I explained a little earlier, the investment in car carriers has recently been reduced. In short, our assumption for now is that the amount of investment by 2030 is more or less covered by the amount already announced. I do not know yet when an ammonia-fueled ships can be available, but if it is around 2028, we would like to order ammonia-fueled car carrier first if it is available. Therefore, for the time being, only the number of ships already ordered is included by the 2030s. May I add that the key is when the new fuel will be available. As I mentioned earlier, we will use the GI fund to build an ammonia-fueled ammonia carrier in 2026. However, it is not clear how well the infrastructure that supplies the ammonia will be available. Therefore, our direction now is to invest in bridging solutions centered on LNG fuel until the new fuel becomes available. As I mentioned earlier, the question is how to set the assumptions. If you assume that equipment is available from the second half of the 2020s, then all we can build is 45 ships. But if the timing delays, we will have to invest in more LNG-fueled ships. In any case, not only the timing of the new fuel availability, but also how far the infrastructure will be constructed. I can't be optimistic. I think that it will not be easy to build early. This concludes my answer. Let me move on to the next question. Considering the megatrends of achieving net zero in the ocean-going business by 2050, What will the composition of green and brown business should be in your portfolio? In addition, the interim target for 2030 should be CO2 emissions reduction in absolute amount. About how much emission reduction is possible with an investment of 550 billion? These are the two questions. Let me again clarify the purpose of the question. As I understand, your question is what type of discussion has been made on how to assume the proportion of green and brown business. In fact, we do not discuss in a way to set the desirable proportion to begin with, nor to discuss how to transition to the ideal status. The reason is that the renewable energy business is still developing around the world, and of course, we think it would be better if we could increase the renewable energy ratio as much as we could. But we do not know for sure how far we can increase the renewable ratio. Therefore, we set certain assumptions and try to increase the business in such area. We took a bottom-up approach in calculating the proportion. Again, we do not set the predefined proportion to begin with. The second question is the number of emissions reductions, but today I do not have the specific figure for you. I think the purpose of the question is CO2 reduction in tonnage when we cut to 87% on slide 40. As I explained earlier, we have officially issued a reduction target based on intensity. In the task force, based on various simulations, we plan to review and announce the revised environmental targets in the future. At this time, we have not reached that stage yet. I hope you could understand that we announce this way in the form of that CO2 emission volume is not calculated.
Question to President Hitoshi Nagasawa. How has the concept of ESG management changed over the past year as the awareness of decarbonization has increased further globally? When we announced our ESG story last year, as I explained at the meeting, we felt a sense of crisis that we could not survive unless we put ESG at the center of our management. This sense of crisis has led the group's efforts to promote management by adding ESG yardsticks to the economic yardsticks that had been used. As we mentioned earlier, we have already placed orders for some ships, but we are now promoting the fuel conversion of up to 45 ships. We have also raised the awareness of group employees and are promoting diversity in various ways, such as appointment of female managers as mentioned in the appendix. So, we have been evaluated by many people, and although there are various opinions, there is no doubt about the direction we are headed to, and in a sense, we have received many comments from investors that they want us to go ahead with this direction and increase our corporate value. I understand that there are many stakeholders who are supporting us. Although we are in this uncertain time, we will continue to move forward in this direction. We mentioned earlier about ammonia. We have concrete plans to order more LNG-fueled ships, at least until we can be sure. We will promote fuel conversion more and more and reduce GHG emissions by even 1% or 2%. Basically, we have already set a goal of 30% emission reduction per unit of production by 2030. Net zero in 2050 is our goal, as I mentioned earlier, and we are working towards it even if it is just one step closer to that goal or work towards overachieving our 2030 goal. Now, the next question. What is your analysis on the risk of your company's basic revenue peeling off due to clients' decarbonization measures? For example, do you expect demand for transportation of fossil fuels such as coal for fuel use, crude oil, and petroleum products to decrease. I would like to present our medium-term revenue targets in next year's medium-term management plan presentation, but as you pointed out, it is undeniable that fossil fuel transportation, especially coal and part of crude oil, is decreasing under the current decarbonization trend. We do expect that revenue from such areas will decrease. On the other hand, there are many potential new businesses, such as offshore wind power and CO2 transportation, which we have presented in the form of new businesses. We believe that these new businesses will be sufficient to compensate for the loss of revenue and even exceed them. Therefore, I believe that we will ultimately be able to increase corporate value in this aspect as well. That is all.
Moving to the next question. What do you think about the considerable hurdles to handling ammonia fuel safely and accident-free? It seems to me that it would be particularly difficult to ensure the safety of the crew. What are your views on this? Thank you very much for the question. You are exactly right. The reason why we are not sure when we will be able to start using the new fuel is because of the toxicity problem of ammonia. Because of its toxicity, we of course need to ensure safe operation, and ensuring the safety of the crew is the most important. It is not very clear how we can do that or how the registration for ammonia fuel will be developed. What is on the slide about ammonia-fueled ships in 2026 is in a way demonstration ships. We will make various preparations and work on it, but just because it is completed does not mean that ammonia can be used immediately. Therefore, we believe that infrastructure development and safety measures for ships' crews are major issues to be addressed for the ammonia fuel. Therefore, we are not optimistic by any means. That is all.
Now for the next and final question. First of all, will LNG-fueled ships be primarily ammonia-ready ships? If so, is it correct that the risk of ships becoming obsolete in the future is considerably reduced? Second, you are planning a major investment, but what kind of source of funds are you assuming? We have done a lot of study on LNG-fueled ships and ammonia-ready ships. When we say ammonia-ready, we mean that the amount of ammonia required to produce the same amount of heat as LNG fuel is greater than that of LNG, so space for tank is necessary. Also, as mentioned in the previous question, we need a way to ensure safety. That is one of the reasons why we have to be careful. Therefore, we are not thinking of making all of the LNG-fueled ships ammonia-ready. There are cost issues. It may not be practical to build a high-cost ship with ammonia tanks from the beginning, so we may use some LNG-fueled ships as demonstration ships, but the basic ships will be using LNG as fuel. As we have more visibility on ammonia, we will increase the number of ships that are ammonia-ready and eventually all ammonia. I think that is a realistic picture. Regarding your second question, the amount of investment, I'm sorry to say that we have been inconveniencing some of our clients, but our financial position improved significantly last year and this year. And we are now able to invest in new projects and manage our investments by generating stable income each year as we aim to become a sustainable business entity. I believe our funding will include debt, not just equity, but at least as of the end of this fiscal year, in light of the improvements in our financial position and our debt-to-equity ratio, we are sufficiently funded to cover the investments. Thank you very much for the many questions we have received today. Now that we have reached the end of the time, we will conclude the question and answer session. This concludes the live webcast of the NYK Group ESG Story 2022 information meeting. Thank you very much for watching.